Okay, so I'm supposed to be talking about family, etiquette, and domestic violence. I will start by saying that I have a deep love for family. And our family, as we know, is the bedrock and the foundation of the society. When we get things right in the family, everything finds its place. And because these three topics are interconnected, I would say I will start with family, because that's the basis of everything. That's where we learn etiquette. That's where the domestic violence also occurs. So I'll start by saying that the hand that rocks the cradle rules the world, because women, because of our physiological build-up and the way we are created, we tend to be closer and bond more with the children. And so there's a need for us to raise strong women, women who are strong in character and also in learning, that can raise the future generation, because the children really are the future of this world, not only our country. So if we have women who are strong, women who are disciplined, women who are knowledgeable, God-fearing, you can imagine that our children too will also turn out right. We don't have to leave everything for the teachers in school, because there's just so much they can do, and there's just so much time the children spend in school that they can learn as much. And a lot of things that are happening in society is indicative of the fact that, we've really lost it as parents. We have not really coped as we should have. We have not done what we should do and should have done. So our children are not turning out as well as we would have expected. If we talk about etiquette, you will remember, or you will recall, some of us who are older, that in times past, we had codes, we had rules that we followed. In the village setting, in cities, wherever you find yourself, you will not see an elderly person coming into a room and keep sitting down when there's just maybe that chair that is available. You will stand up. You will greet your elders. In fact, it will be a taboo to pass by your elder and not greet. And even at that time when we greet, we curtsy. Now the children look you square in their eyes. You're looking at them, they're looking at you. Like, who is going to greet who first? So it's sad that we are where we are now. In fact, that is why Hillary Clinton wrote this book, that it takes a village. Because at one time, and maybe now, still in the rural areas, hopefully, I hope it is still the same way, one person's child is everybody's child. Everybody joins and contributes in raising the child. So that if you're not punished by your own parents, some other parent will punish you for something you did, even before your parents come back, and they will report you for more punishment. So, times have changed. Yes, we're getting a bit more modernized. We're living in cities now, so it's different. But I would like to see us go back to those times when we, did more for our children. So etiquette is defined as the customary code of polite behavior in society or among members of a particular profession or group. So it's not only in the family you find etiquette, not only in society, also in different professions, like you say, like in the medicine, you have the etiquettes of the medical profession, just like we have in the legal profession, and in all other kinds of profession, and in society at large. So I want to sum it all by saying, that etiquette, in my mind, can be defined as doing unto others as you wish them to do unto you, which is the golden rule. If we treat people the way we would like to be treated, that is a very simplistic description, you will find out that the world will be a happier place. People will be more confident, people will be, more trusting, people will get along better, because you will feel the pain of what you're giving out, and you will realize that you wouldn't want it to come back to you, so you won't do it to the next person. What can we really do without etiquette? Domestic violence can be avoided. And of course, people always say, the best thing to do in response to it is to leave the environment. But, there's just so much that can happen. When you talk about domestic violence, in the criminal code, the penal code, there were provisions for offenses that deal with violence. But you see, the Violence Against Persons Prohibition Act has now extended it to not be only within the home, not only in the society, but in every different kinds of respects that, we have not even thought about, some of us. Now, in Rivers State here, we have a law that is against female circumcision. We also have a law that is against harmful widowhood practices. These are also considered in the Violence Against Persons Act. In fact, I'm glad that Mr. Enemi Alabo is here of the House of Assembly. Maybe you will take this back to the Assembly and get them, you legislators, to not domesticate, what's that word now? To pass that law or adopt the law. If we can adopt that law in Rivers State so that there can be more protection for every one of us. And it would be good to see that also happen in other states too, so that, you know, the thought that came behind the essence of the Violence Against Persons Prohibition Act will be fulfilled or achieved. So a little introduction of this Violence Against Persons Prohibition Act can be said to be that the Violence Against Persons, Violence Against Persons Prohibition Act, which is the VAPT Act, was passed into law in May 2015. The act was a result of agitations of protection of people or persons against the different forms of violence. And we know this violence, like we talk in domestic violence, usually is between spouses, but there are other violent situations that can come up, you know, between siblings and even maybe people from the extended family. And it doesn't necessarily mean that the wife or the woman is always the victim. Some men are, you know, victims of violence too, because some men have wives who actually beat them. It does happen. Now, the violence against, violence both at the home front and the larger society is fast becoming a trend in the recent day Nigeria. In fact, my own understanding of violence, domestic violence, is that children who watch their parents violating themselves, you know, they see and they learn from what they do. They are victims themselves, but in the end, they turn out to grow up to be violators themselves. So they become, you know, violent even in their own marriages. So it's a case of, you know, monkey see, monkey do, and they learn it, you know, it's just like a default position. And, you know, they just, it becomes a part of them because that's what they're used to, that's what they have been seeing. So we have to be careful what we do in the presence of our children, and especially how we talk to each other too, because, you know, there are different kinds of violence. There's verbal violence, you know, and that one, I would say, is psychological. Verbal abuse, I meant to say. It's psychological and it's emotional. And that seems to be even the worst kind of, you know, abuse you can give to anybody, because, you know, when it is physical, a lot of times you can heal, you may heal, because, I mean, sometimes you get the treatment and you can heal fast. Some people actually die from, you know, domestic violence. Some are maimed. Some lose a part of their body or just have something that is destroyed that can never be gotten back in their bodies. So this Violence Against Persons Prohibition Act expanded the scope, you know, to even economic abuse, economic violence, in the sense that a man who has a wife and does not allow her to work, and she wishes to work. It's not like she doesn't want to work. She wants to, like, maybe have a career, grow in it, and then you prevent her from doing it because you say, oh, you have all the money, you can actually look after her. What does she need to work for? You know, it takes away something from the woman, because a woman who doesn't express herself, doesn't go out and do something and is achieving, you know, it doesn't allow you to have the self-confidence and that the feeling of self-worth that you ought to ordinarily have. In fact, it even covers up to violence that occur during political times, as in like voting, you know, and I'm sure the politicians will like this. If it happens to you, you can actually sue and then get compensation, and somebody can get punished. So it has a very broad scope. And let me just read out some of the areas that it covers. It covers spousal battery, forceful ejection from home, forceful marriage, forced financial dependence or economic abuse, harmful widowhood practices, female circumcision or genital mutilation, harmful traditional practices, harmful substance attacks. We hear cases of acid baths and other kinds of chemicals that a scorned lover or a rejected husband or wife will do, you know, or use in attacking their ex-spouse or divorced spouse, forced isolation and separation from family and friends, indecent exposure and violence by state actors. In other words, imagine that you have an issue and maybe you get rough handled by the police or a soldier. It covers that. It also covers deprivations of persons of their liberty, incest, and so many others. Rape is also part of it too. So like I was saying, women, a lot falls on us. I know that I might sound traditional, but the fact that a woman has a job or a career is not a reason to not be responsible. We're natural nurturers, we're the caregivers, the homemakers, and a lot depends on us. So we cannot shirk our responsibilities. Yes, the men too. I mean, I was happy to hear, was it Mr. Ross Alabo George that said something about his child? And no, it was the artist. And the warning he was giving them for wasting food. That's training. That's still part of etiquette that he's teaching his children. We learn it more at home. So home is the best place where we can raise children that are godly, children who respect themselves and respect each other, children who support each other. And, at one time, it was a good thing to send your children to boarding school because you feel like it does allow them to learn communal living and how to get along with other people that are outside their families. But these days, because of the way things have been and the way education has been sliding downwards, it's not, you have to be very circumspect about sending your children to boarding schools. You have to really check the school and be sure. One time bullying was not allowed. All these are things that happen, that of course goes against the rule of etiquette. The Child Rights Act teaches, it tells us the rights of the children. It also tells us their own responsibilities. So it's two ways. In other words, you don't seek to have rights without responsibilities. There are responsibilities, and I would like to see a point or a return of civics and history to our school curriculum. I think it's very important that we should learn where we're coming from so that we can know where we're going. And with civics, it teaches us how to be good citizens. It will teach the children how to be responsible citizens, how to look after government property with the belief and knowledge that this property that belongs to the government actually is their own. So now, in domestic violence now, we have a plan here, by the grace of God, the present administration under His Excellency, to build a women's development center. And in that center, there will be a safe home for battered women. It's sad that, it has not been thought about before now. Where do these women go when they are battered? If they have any incident and the abuser is within the same home as they are. I'm looking forward to a time where really we will not have any need for women to leave homes because our husbands will be better. And I need to stress this point here. You cannot beat somebody into submission. You can't beat somebody into loving you. You have to love the person into submission. Also in Rivers State, by the grace of God, yes, we're going to have a family court. United Nations Convention on the Rights of the Child and the African Convention, of the Welfare and the Rights of the Child were both brought in together, and different parts were taken from it to suit our purposes here in Nigeria, and that was not domesticated in the Child Rights Act, which now has been adopted as the Child Rights Law in Rivers State. But it's sad to know that this Child Rights Law is not in every state of Nigeria. And it's especially in the northern part of the country that you will find that, possibly because there is a stated age for marriage there, which is 18 years old, and maybe some people don't agree with that. But, I have a daughter who is going to be 13 next February. I look at her, and I wonder, when I look at her, like, what will the man see in this child, that will be exciting for him? I don't know. It makes me wonder. I mean, why not wait for the child to mature and be ready to look after herself? She's yet to even understand herself. How can she now, give care to another child? And this breeds, child widows, because most times people who marry these very young girls are, much, much older than they are. And of course, as nature goes, the older will always predecease the younger. So when these men die, these little girls have not really come out of their adolescent years. And if they have, it's still a big struggle. And that continues that cycle of poverty, because, what does that child know? She may not even have gone to school. So now, how can she fend for this child, especially if she loses her husband? And then, of course, she turns poor because she cannot cope. And this other child may still go through the same process. And in the Child Rights Act, it teaches such things as, respect for elders, peaceful communal living, and, everything good as it used to be in the past that still deals with etiquette. So I am, blessed, really, to be the judge that has been appointed as the family court judge, and I know it's going to get busy. So there will be a time, there will be a time when we will need to have other judges too, still, because one judge can't do it. It's on two levels, the magistrates court level as well as the high court level. And this is a way of announcing that court and to enlighten us that really you can actually go there, because issues such as custody of children, and in fact the whole essence of the child rights law is to handle cases that will be in the best interest of the child. So the judge will sit with assessors, and the judge comes with the legal background, the assessors come with the welfare background, and together they will look at a case and then see what is best for the child. So by the grace of God, we're going to have better for our children. But I always say, you have to know your rights before you can actually enforce it. If you don't know your rights, if you're ignorant of what your right is, you cannot know how to enforce it. So it is important that we need to educate our children by way of printed materials and even going on the radio, talking, having different television activities, and even going to schools is important. And us parents telling our children at home what to expect, what not to accept, what to speak up about, because if the children don't know, they cannot even realize that something wrong is actually happening to them to seek help. So it's important that we should enlighten our children how not to be touched, how not to be spoken to, so that, with that understanding, they will be in a better position to protect themselves, because the parents will not be there all the time. So the children need to know, no matter how small your child is, you start teaching them. Sex education is very important. Let them know that the private part is private. It is private, it's not for anybody. They need to understand that, because if they don't, a lot of times, even rape, the definition of rape also talks about, getting consent by means of fraud or misrepresentation, in the sense that you deceive the person to understand that act as something else than what it is, so that, that qualifies too as rape. So we need to do more as parents for our children. And as far as domestic violence is concerned, we need to, of course, like I said, be more loving, I don't think there's anybody that cannot be managed. I don't think so. Everybody can be understood and managed, and there's no need for violence, because, when you do that, you actually rob the victim of their self-worth and self-esteem. You sometimes make them, if they are working persons, they can't go to court, to work, because it's funny I said that. I've not been a victim, forgive me. Anyway, so I was saying, the person stays at home to heal, and maybe the person might have to engage a doctor to take care of them. So monies are going out to pay this doctor that could have been avoided, monies that could have been put to better use. Economically, we suffer when people who are abused stay at home and don't go to work. So in everything, family is everything. And we all need to get back to the basics. We all need to go back to how things used to be, how it was working. And we all need to encourage each other too. And of course, support each other in every way we can. Thank you. Yes. Thank you.